Okay, so I'm going to try and make this as different as the last panel, but this is unlocking Constanta's multi-regional full potential, investing in human capital, technology, infrastructure, and logistics. I try to stay as true to that as possible. So you can see everybody's name tags, but just for pronunciation's sake, I'd like to introduce Rino Brucha, Manfred Seitz, and Bogdan Belshu. Yeah? Oh, that looked like an okay. So I just want to start because we've been talking about President Trump, the shifts in the European Union, and I think there is an underlying nervousness in a lot of people about globalization and about tech. I don't know which one more than the other. I think just generally globalization, taking people's jobs. So it's easy for us to sit up here. I mean, we were talking one point with the mayor earlier and saying, let technology do this job so another person can program it. That's great to say, but I do think it makes some people nervous about investing in technology to take away my job. Shouldn't we be nervous? I mean, there are a lot of big thinkers out there, studies that show, much like the Industrial Revolution, that there will be a big downturn in jobs, though they think eventually there'll be a big uptick after that, but that we could go through 2, if not 3 decades in job problems for human beings as we invest in technology.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think I'm from Damen Shipyards. From Damen Shipyards, of course, obviously, we also have the same issues as addressed here about people leaving Romania, but also challenges. But on the other hand, I think in general, when you look, the story of Damen Shipyards in Romania started already 25 years ago. 25 years ago, there were already relations between Damen Shipyards in the Netherlands and in Galatz. And 20 years ago, they became main shareholder in Galatz, and it's actually quite a successful story. Beneficial for both the company in Netherlands and the company in Romania. It's an old company. Damen is 90 years old, and the shipyard in Romania is 125 years old. So 20 years ago, or 25 years ago, they started this journey together. Exactly from the beginning already, it became a success because in Romania, all the things that I heard here are actually also applicable for the shipbuilding industry. There is an enormous history of talented people, an enormous history of good engineers, and you see that back in the shipyard. So immediately already it became a center of excellence for complex vessels like military vessels, research vessels, and not only for the customers, but also for the group, because in Galatz, to give an example, the center of excellence for engineering for the entire group for naval vessels is done from Galatz. So the entire group uses all the knowledgeable engineers that had their education in the Lower Danube University, shipbuilding university, also with a long history. So it is a sort of successful story now. And now luckily, not so long ago, let's say over a period of 7 months, we agreed with the Romanian government also to take operational control in the shipyard in Mangalia. So for that reason, we are very interested in also what is happening now in Constanța and also benefiting from that, because from the Danube area, from Galatz, the maritime Danube, up to Mangalia. And in Mangalia, we got the operational control of the shipyard, and that is actually the largest shipyard in Europe, which is very complementary to what we are doing in Galatz, because in Mangalia, this large shipyard is very beneficial for cruise liners, offshore projects. We are talking here about offshore projects. So And if you combine this, and also what I heard here about technology, we are, it was a couple of times mentioned already, we are in the tender process for the Romanian government. The Romanian government made very smart decisions to also already stipulate in the procedure that the vessels needs to be built in Romania, corvettes and upgrades of frigates. We have already in Galatz 20 years experience in naval vessels. We deliver to 13 EU and NATO countries all kind of military vessels. In combination with that knowledge and then the possibility of bringing this knowledge also to Mangalia, because that's the shipyard in Mangalia is a shipyard located at the Black Sea, strategically located. So if the Romanian Navy would like, for example, to also to locate the service center, the lifetime support, the more or less repair, maintenance services in Mangalia, we could bring American partners, because we have American partners in our tender process for the corvettes. We have Boeing, we have Raytheon, we have General Dynamics, because we all realize in Europe we are depending, in Romania we are depending on Europe for our values, for our common values, but also for our economics. But let's be realistic. Without NATO, the security is not guaranteed. So, in that respect, we have actually a quite strong partnership now with the 3 American giants in the defense industry, Boeing, Raytheon, and General Dynamics, and together with the European partners, Thales, and alongside our Dutch group. And we could bring this technology, this center of excellence, this service center, actually very practically already, if, of course, obviously, the Romanian government decides to select Damen as main partner for this, but to the area, and that would have an enormous spin-off for the region. And imagine if other countries, other NATO partners, would follow this principle of bringing US and Europe together in one concept, and Romania could be at the forefront of that. It could have an enormous spin-off. So all of this, if you connect all the dots, what is said before here, we are just one player in this, but we could make this as a first step.
But so you're talking about a lot of the investment coming from government, or at least laying the foundation. But do you think there's more that companies like your own can do in investing in the human capital?
Oh yes, for sure. And we are doing this very actively already for a long time in Galatz. In Galatz shipyard, we are employing there 2,500 people on our payroll, but on a daily basis 4,000 people are working there. The Mangalia shipyard is a shipyard that came, I think, maybe people in the room know better, but around 9,000 people used to work there maybe 10 years ago only. At this moment we only have 2,000 people left because the rest of the people left because of the financial situation and the situation in the shipyard. But we strongly believe that the difference, because I can speak for myself, I worked at the shipyard, I managed a shipyard in the Middle East, a brand new shipyard, a 3.5 billion investment by the state of Qatar. And there I had the biggest docks, the biggest floating docks, the biggest ship lifts, the biggest fully air-conditioned halls. But what I didn't have was the people. The people like you have in Romania, the people with university education, the people from generation on generation shipbuilding, the infrastructure around it, what we see here. I think Mircea already explained the 5th largest shipbuilder country in the world. We have it is even beneficial that we have our competitors also here in this region, because that is the infrastructure. So people make the difference. And we as a shipyard group, of course, have our designs, of course, have our knowledge, of course, have our technology partners. But in Romania, we have such an important human capital, and so we cherish that. We try to as much as possible respect that. At this moment also, we also celebrate in Galatz University, in Lower Danube University, or 125 years of existence of Damen Shipyards Galatz. That's not Damen Shipyards actually, that's Chantier Naval Galatz, because it was founded by Mr. Furnick in the past. So we try to respect and also try to retain our people and attract new people. And of course, we have more work. At this moment, we work from Canada to Australia. We have 20 projects now. And also, unfortunately, we need to also attract people from Asia now, skilled laborers. And we have now at this moment also people from Vietnam working on our platform. I would be so happy if this would be possible to bring more experienced Romanians back from abroad, which we are quite successful, by the way. But yeah, then we talk about dozens and not about hundreds. But to bring them back, because Romanian people with the experience from abroad back in Romania, yeah, that's gold.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you on that one because that's a very important point. But here, you hear Mr. Brucha talking about the importance of human capital, that they want more Romanians, that they want to bring it back. So do you think the onus is on the companies, the governments, both? Because you do have so many people, Romanians moving to where I live, moving to London, moving to UK. So, Mr. Seitz, what do you think that the investment, where do you think the investment should be? I think you have one there, should be coming from. Mr. Seitz, the Secretary General of the Danube International. And if your mic doesn't work, I'll give you mine.
Indeed, there are brilliant people, brilliant minds in Romania. I know this by heart because in our small organizations, I also have more or less 1/4 of the workforce comes from Romania, in Vienna. So they are also in Vienna, those which perform high. And, well, unfortunately, as we heard, also those which are working in my organization, at the moment they are not thinking about coming back. And this is something what the policymakers in this country really should worry. They should be much more worried about the immigrants than the immigrants. This is also something what we face. When we look into
You should be more worried about the emigrants than the immigrants?
Yes.
The people leaving than the people coming to
absolutely,
Romania?
absolutely. Yeah. I think this is the biggest problem also in the entire region, in many countries which are focusing very much also on immigration issues.
Sorry, do you mean like the UK, for instance? What do you?
No, for example, we have also a neighbor, Hungary. They are talking about 3,000-4,000 people which more or less should be resettled. Yeah, and in the time of the last 8 years, 600,000 Hungarians have left the country, working permanently outside of the country. So once again, Austria is the biggest beneficiary because many of them come to work and to live in Austria. But let me come back to the situation as it is also in Constanta. We are a small organization, but we have a couple of projects in the region. We are a business network, roughly 200 companies, a lot of them also from Romania. So I think that I know quite well how the situation is. And the Port of Constanta is an important factor for the economy in the city and in the region and in Romania. But it could be more. It could be really the engine of economic development and prosperity. Not only a hub for cargo, import, export, and logistics. When we look into other seaports in Western Europe, Northwestern Europe, we see these seaports are also centers for regional development, and economies and production is there, industrial production is there. And this is also something what we still miss in Constanta. We have significant space. Everybody, when I bring also delegations from Western Europe, they see them deeply impressed about the huge infrastructure and about the huge possibilities. There is hectares of land which could be used for industrial production. But it is obvious that there are some barriers, which we currently analyze also together in a joint project in the European framework. Why is the Port of Constanta and many ports in the region here not the first location for setting up businesses? Yeah? And this has something to do also with the regulatory framework. Yeah? So the port legislation. Yeah? Just coming from a meeting in the framework of our project Daphne in Enns. This is also a port location. This is a small port, a river port in Austria. And when you would like to set up a company in the industrial area, which needs also access to the waterfront for transshipment of goods, it takes you roughly 6 weeks, 8 weeks to buy up land, to make the necessary contracts with the port administration and to start your business. Yeah? If you would like to do this in ports which are centrally governed in Romania, but it's the same also in Bulgaria, it takes you 1 year, 2 years. Yeah? Maybe because you have to undergo a public tender for concession. This is an exercise which lasts at least 1 year. If you have bad luck, then you end at the courts, and then another year is gone. So you're really investing 2 years of time to spend your money. Yeah? And investors are shy animals. So they have a project. Each project has a window of opportunity, and this should be implemented as quick as possible. So when you have certain conditions where it takes you too long, then you will not make it. The investment will go to other places.
So less regulation in a place like Constanța?
Well, I think a friend of mine said Romania is the best location to invest because you have a good educational system, you have dedicated people, you have also finance available. The only thing is, and he was Romanian, he said, we are the world champions in public administration and bureaucracy. And when working with our members here, we really see that bureaucracy is a big topic. We have too much administrative barriers, which lead to insufficiencies, which lead to time delays, and this hampers very much also the investment.
So, Mr. Belshu, I've asked 2 people now about investing in human capital, and I don't think they're purposefully avoiding my question, but they're talking about bigger issues. They're talking about regulation. So from your viewpoint, from PricewaterhouseCoopers, is that really the key? If you want to invest in humans, that you're just going to have to less regulation, for example, that's the key?
Well, I have a very pragmatic point of view. I think people go where there are more opportunities, and it's not like Romanians don't like Romania and like UK more than Romania. Maybe UK is nicer from many angles, but the reason why people go there is really they have more opportunities, and if we want to keep them here, we need to create for them those opportunities. We need to help the economy grow, we need to expand, and so on. Now, we spoke a lot about the foreign trade and global trade and globalization. Let's look at China. China started as a low-cost country. So US and many other countries pushed production to China because it's cheaper, and ultimately they're making more profits. China was smart enough to leverage on that, and to build their own infrastructure, to build their own capabilities, get into research and development. So now they really have companies which are competitive at the global level without being pumped by American or Western European companies. So they managed to create those opportunities, and the country benefited from that. So all in all, I think we should be looking more on how to build those opportunities. Now, it's true that the world is changing at a very fast pace. And now to get back to your initial question on technology and so on, I think technology is putting a threat on all of us. As globalization is putting a threat on many companies, But as it was discussed before, the idea is what to do in this circumstance, and the idea is not to, if we are just scared, then we lose. The idea is to see that as an opportunity and to transform ourselves. And again, just to deviate a little bit from the discussion,
But I do want something tangible. If you can give me some
I will give you
examples as
some
well.
tangible things, but I think this is interesting as as a food for thought. If you look at the progress of artificial intelligence, it's a proven fact that a machine can do better diagnosis than a doctor. It's a proven fact that a machine can do better legal research than a lawyer. Now, with this artificial intelligence growing and developing, and with the processing power of a computer, which we will never be able to beat, I guess robots will be smarter than us very fast. I think it's a matter of some tens of years. And when I, thinking of this a while ago, I thought, maybe slavery is back. All we need to do is to buy some robots, put them at work for us, and then we stay home, relax at the beach, and we benefit of that. But probably it won't be sustainable.
Yeah.
Therefore,
I think I would miss my paycheck.
Yeah. Therefore, I guess the only reasonable thing to think of is that we will become robots. I think in the future we will all have chips in our brains so that we match the processing power of robots. Because otherwise, for us, there is no competitive advantage, or there will be no competitive advantage. But to come back to the topic of discussion and get back to Constanța at the seaside, as any consultant, I put together some charts. So, foreign trade has been out there for many years. Ever since the people started to build ships, of course, foreign trade started to happen. And nowadays it grew significantly. So this chart is showing the flows of foreign trade in and out of Europe. And you see with the orange color the areas where it goes and where it comes from. And I think it's quite obvious that most of the flow is from out of Europe, goes from west to east. So basically towards Asia. And the same is true vice versa. Now, with Constanța being really at the edge between Europe and East, there is obviously an opportunity in this. Now, if we move over on the next page, those TEU 20-foot equivalent, it's a unit of measure to measure the volume of trade at the global level. Now, Europe is roughly 20% of the global trade. You see there on the left-hand side, US. That's the bigger numbers are the westbound, eastbound flows of goods. Now, to stay a little bit at US, because we discussed about this in the previous session, you see the 19.4 million TEUs. That's how much US imports from Asia. 7.5, this is how much they export. If you look at the size of the deficit, is enormous. So I guess...
You're sounding like Mr. Trump.
Well, I mean, it's a reality. I mean, maybe...
We won't laugh at you.
It's a reality. So it's definitely enormous. Now, how you react to that, I think, there are different ways of doing it. But it's the fact is that it should raise some concerns. Now, to move further down, of course, all that flow is helping a lot certain industries. Shipping and port industry is one of them. And I borrowed a chart, the size of the bubbles. Those are the major ports in the world. The size of the bubble is proportional to the volume of business for that particular flow. You see there on the right-hand side, that's China. So when you see all those big bubbles, that's China. And then when you see the smaller bubbles in the middle, that's Europe. The bigger bubbles are in the northern part of Europe. And there are some a little bit more to the south. But it's clear that there's an important business for certain people. Now, to get back to some more clear and concrete numbers on the next page, those are the top ports in the world. I only put top 100. And by the way, on the previous chart, there was no bubble next to Constanța, not because Constanța does not exist, but it's not in top 100. If you look at the top 100 ports in the world, 8 out of top 10 are Chinese. The first European port is number 11 in the world, and that's Rotterdam. So, and you see there the quantity, actually there's a typo, those are not TEU, those are millions TEU, but the 12.2 million TEUs. To put things into perspective, Constanța is 0.6. So, you know, if we talk about opportunities, there's a huge opportunity. Probably Constanța will not be Rotterdam anytime soon, but only by doubling it, you know, the amount of business it needs to steal from the other ports is irrelevant, is immaterial. For them, they won't even see the difference. So
who can Constanța steal from?
I guess if it's all those yellow bars are actually the big European ports. You see Rotterdam, you see Antwerp, you see Hamburg, you see Bremen, and so on. All of them are of orders of magnitude bigger than Constanța. If he steals one from each of them, you know, it's quite. It's actually for Constanța can be quite substantial. On the next page, if you want, this is the volume shipped from Constanța. They're not negligible, but as you see there on the bottom is 5.5% of Rotterdam, 20% of Piraeus volumes. So it's not, you know, stealing a little bit, stealing 0.1 from Rotterdam, 0.1 from Antwerp, and so on, can easily at least double the volumes that go through Constanța. And you also see the trend is being quite stagnant, unfortunately, in the past 5 years, despite quite significant growth that Romania had.
So how do they steal from Antwerp?
They did not. The idea is to...
No, how can they?
How can they steal?
Yeah.
Well, that's not an easy question
It's
to...
easy to spot a problem, but solving it is the harder
I mean,
one.
I think the problem is the same. The problem is the good old problem of infrastructure. I think it's even embarrassing to keep talking about how much we lack infrastructure and how many benefits it can have. But unfortunately, it continues to be the truth. Now, having said that, though, I wanted to point out the fact that despite that, the Constanța actually had a very good performance compared to the other counties in Romania. So if you look at the GDP, and that the chart on the left-hand side shows GDP growth and GDP in absolute terms, Constanța is number 3 in Romania. Now, Bucharest is far away, so I cut the chart because otherwise all those points are moving too much to the bottom and to the left, so you don't see them anymore. So Bucharest is a different story. But after that, Constanța is actually, leaving Bucharest aside, is number 2 in the country, and it has the second highest growth. You see there also Giurgiu, which was also growing fast. Giurgiu is also, with access to the Danube, so I think there is a little bit of correlation. On a per capita basis, Constanța is also the 3rd largest county in Romania. So I think even with the small volumes, Constanța is doing quite well. Now, if you look on the next page.
So the growth in Constanța is even higher than the GDP growth in Bucharest. Barely.
In the past 15 years, it was, yes. Now, that is also always relative. When you start from a smaller base, you can grow faster. But fact is that in 2000, Constanța was number 9 in terms of GDP, the county in Romania. Now it's number 3. So it definitely grew faster than most of the other counties. Now, if you look at what is driving Constanța's business, on the left-hand side, those are the top companies by profitability. And you see there a mixture of port operations, trading that goes with it. You see energy. You don't see that many hotels because it's very fragmented. So there's no individual company which is relevant enough to go in the top 10. On the right-hand side, I wanted to look at the GDP structure by KN codes, by NACI codes, by type of industry, but I couldn't find that.
Just a small correction. The second one is a diamond.
Okay.
How would you
Sorry
know?
about that. But if you look at the, if you look on the right-hand side.
Hacker. PwC computers and
I think he wants to make sure that we are not asleep.
Yeah. if you look on the right-hand side, there's the structure of the occupied population. The left bar is Romania, the right bar is Constanța. And there you see a number of things. First, the general observation, agriculture is totally strange in Romania. Agriculture occupies, at the country level, 24% of the population and generates 6% of GDP. So, we keep talking about a lack of labor. We have a huge amount of people which are formally occupied in agriculture, but it's a subsistence, agriculture for subsistence. Many of them living on social benefits and so on. That's a huge pool of people which, if they could be converted, even in basic types of work, could solve a good part of the labor shortage that we have. Constanța does a little bit better than that. So the fact that it has a smaller weight, it means that there are less people which have subsistence agriculture. But I think it's a fact that industry is underweight in the county. So you see that the weight of the population employed in industry is quite a bit lower than throughout the country, which shows an opportunity. Trade is bigger, transport is bigger. Of course, there's no surprise because of the specifics of the region. But again, to come back to the earlier discussions, ITNC and professionals, real estate, those types of things are underweight in Constanța. I very strongly believe that ITNC could be a strong opportunity for the region in a very short run. Proximity to Bucharest, a very attractive city, a very likable, a vibrant city. I think it can attract people in the ITNC space quite easily. What is holding Constanța back is university. I think there's a clear need of scaling up the university, both in terms of capabilities as well as in terms of scale. Plus, of course, the services, administrative services, BPO, those types of things. So, having said that, though, Constanța is doing quite well, but there is a significant potential because of this proximity. And while Mehmet in the earlier session managed to almost dismantle our hope, our belief in Romania as an energy hub, I think in terms of logistics hub, that's a little bit more difficult to dismantle. Because whereas the pipes, you can move them up and down, east or west, based on geopolitics. The map is, all the countries are quite small on the map if you look at it from the helicopter. I think the seas are, you can't move them. And the big advantage of Constanța is that location. And if we move over to the next chart, there we show those are a little bit difficult to read and quite complicated. But on the left-hand side, that's the most traditional route from China. So you see how it goes, it goes south, then it goes west, and then it goes all the way up to the Netherlands ports. That small star that's Constanța. And that small shortcut can actually reduce the distance by 2,400 sea miles. That's roughly 1,300 kilometers. The average speed of a boat is about 22 kilometers per hour. So if you do a calculation, that can save roughly 6 days at least. Transportation from China to Europe takes between 30 and 40 days, depending on where it leaves and where it goes. So 6 days out of 30, is quite a bit. To that, you also need to add the fact that from where it gets, then you need to ship it, you need to transport it by road or by rail to the other countries. So all in all, you can reduce not only the time, but you actually can reduce the cost substantially. We are talking about 20, even 20+% cost reduction by moving goods through Constanța rather than by moving them via Rotterdam or Antwerp or the other European ports. And this is quite factual, so it's not, it's not driven by geopolitics, it's driven by business decisions. When you ship something, you want to do it faster and you want to do it cheaper. It doesn't matter, there are no pipes, there are only seas and oceans, you just take the smallest route. Now, how should Constanța benefit from all that? Frankly speaking, I think doesn't depend only on Constanța. The whole idea behind this is to move things into Constanța and then to ship them throughout Europe where they need to get, and vice versa, to take them from Europe and ship them to China or to Asia or to the eastern part via Constanța. But in order to do that, you need to have the connecting points. So definitely infrastructure is the key point. So if we move over to the next page, please. What we need, first we need to build that infrastructure that we should have built maybe 20 years ago. Second, of course, financing. Yeah, it's always is a strong debate on finance. Is never a problem. Finance is always available, and so on. It's true. If you look at the national level, loans as percentage of GDP has been growing, has been declining substantially in the past years. Again, despite the economic growth. So Romania is all the companies are under indebted. Now the exposure is very small. Now it's difficult to see who's right. The banks are too cautious, or the companies are not able to build a solid project and a solid business case. That's always a discussion. But financing, although widely available, that loans to GDP is less than half the EU average. It's abnormally low for a country that should develop and grow. Some problems need to be fixed at the interface between companies and the workers, even the state and the financing. Then the predictable laws and regulation, that's quite easy. Fiscal environment. It's very important when you do those types of logistics operations and you move things in and out of Europe and in between countries, is to have good customs, taxation, laws, incentives, and so on. And the last point, and that actually is not the least important one, is quality of education, because we really need to improve the quality of education, which, although still good, has been declining quite steadily in the past years. So if all of those are being addressed, probably Constanța can at least double, if not increase more the volumes, which will not mean stealing a huge amount of business from the other ports. Actually, it's relatively small, but could mean quite a bit for the country and, of course, for the region. Now, how easy is that? We first did this study, I think it was 10 years ago or so. We are still in the same position, so not much has changed since then. Now, is it complicated? Is it? Well, I think it's not that complicated. The truth of the matter is, the highway from Constanța doesn't stop in Bucharest. There is a little bit more from Bucharest to Pitești. Then it stops again. There is a little bit more than from Sibiu and Cluj, the bits and pieces. So, we have some dots. We just need to connect them, which will take a little bit of time. And there's a starting point. From there, we need multimodal facilities. We need to build a port infrastructure. We need, there's lots of other things that need to be addressed. But that is really the critical element to be tackled.
That's the roadmap. I think we'll wrap it up then. So Bogdan, thank you for that. Manfred and Reno as well. Thank you very much.